another up close video. So last year I did one for Creative Expression's Halloween collection, and they have done another even bigger Halloween collection this year, which is fantastic. And the way they do it is they, instead of just having one collection from one designer for the Halloween, they've actually let like every single designer, and they've also got Pink Ink Designs and Catkin Crafts in there as well now. So there's tons of different styles of Halloween that you can sort of pick from, whichever kind of style is your preferred sort of style, which is really lovely. I haven't got everything. There's a few Jane Davenport stamps, there's some extra Jane Gill stamps, there's the Pink Ink Designs, the Catkins Crafts, and I think there might be a couple of other things that I haven't got. I like some of the Cosmic Shimmer. There's also more colours of fluffy stuff coming out. I do have the orange, which I've used on a couple of projects, but I think there's a green, a purple and a black as well. And there's also a glow-in-the-dark fluffy stuff and a glow-in-the-dark texture paste as well. So instead of actually giving you like a proper really in-depth look at each set and telling you exactly what the name is, I thought I'd run through quickly the dies and stamps and things that I've got, and then I'll just show you a lot of the samples, because last year I think I just showed you the samples to music because I had to get them sent off, but I still have them all at the moment so that I can actually talk you through what I've done on them and everything. And if you want to get hold of any of the Halloween kind of sets, I think the best place for me to link to in the UK is CRaFTi, and then in the US is scrapbook.com. So I'll try and have links to every product in both places, and if you go in the description box below the video, find the big long description by clicking more and then more again, you'll see there's a link to my blog post, or if you can't find the link then just go just put CRaFTi Potential blog into Google and you should be able to find it that way. And there will be picture links on there as well. So if you've seen something that I've shown here that I haven't necessarily told you the exact name of it, if you go on my blog post, you'll be able to see a picture of the product, and you'll easily be able to click on it and find out exactly where to get it from, how much it is and everything like that as well. So, so do make sure you use those resources, because I feel like it's very beneficial to kind of see the little pictures. Annoyingly, you can't put them in a YouTube description, so that's why I have to have the blog post to go along with it so you can see the little pictures. But do make use of that, because I do think when I'm showing you a ton of different things, it's really helpful for you to be able to you know, cherry pick the bits that you were interested in. So, first of all, there is an 8x8 paper pad, which is part of Sam Paul's designs, but it's a really gorgeous Distressed Shadows paper pad, and it's got all sorts of fantastic designs. I only have printed out copies of it, so they will be double-sided, and I'm pretty sure the solid will be on the back of the pattern as well, and then I think you get 4 sheets of each, which is nice. So you get a lot of nice designs that you can use for different things. I actually used these two, plus an embossing folder as well, to line the inside of a paper mache coffin, and I thought it worked really nicely. This one I've used in the back of a shadow box as well, but they're really, really gorgeous patterned papers. Mine are only single-sided, but look at their beautiful distressed kind of designs, and they're 8x8 in size, so if you like really small cards, you could get 4 4x4 card fronts out of it, or if you like the small kind of size that I do, you can definitely get 2 backgrounds out of each of the patterned papers as well. But you do have 24 sheets in this pad, so I've only got like 1 of each of the designs here, and I have used some of those orangey ones as well, and also a lot of that distressed kind of one here. But there is plenty within a sheet to be able to make a couple of different backgrounds, and then you can just go really simple with your die cuts on top as well, without having to create a distressed kind of background. So that's the patterned paper pad that's in the part of this Halloween release for 2023. I also have 3 DL sized stamp sets as part of the Designer Boutique collection. I'll put each of these on a piece of paper so you can see them clearly. You can see, because we're on the design team, you don't get them all in the packaging, you just get the little sticker on them. So I'll read you what all of these sentiments say. I think this is a great one if you do like making things for Halloween. It's a nice one to have a bunch of different sentiments in one go. So you've got things that go bump in the night, monster, spooky, happy Halloween, hocus pocus, witch's brew, ghostly greetings, zombie party, boo, trick or treat, and scaredy cat as well. And there's a gorgeous cat in one of Francois Francois's Halloween stamp sets. I think will go brilliantly with the scaredy cat, but you also have a tiny little cat there as well. And in this icon set, you also get that same little cat that's part of that sentiment too. But look at all the fantastic icons you get in here, and you also get trick or treat and spooky. I love this tree. There's also a creepy, spooky kind of tree in one of Jane Gill's stamp sets that's on a much larger scale, so you can kind of use them together with each other and they go really nicely. You've got a witch on the broom, you've got a little gravestone, you've got this kind of tombstone, you've got different kind of bats in here as well, a little witch's hat, you've got like, this could be a branch or it could be a strike of lightning, you've got horrible creepy spiders, you've got like a zombie hand coming out of the ground, you've got a scarecrow, a different scarecrow with a pumpkin head, skull and crossbones, creepy eyes, like vampire fangs. So you can do all sorts of different kind of designs with all of these little icon stamps. I did do a really simple card just using the tree and then the trick or treat as a sentiment on there. It works really nicely for that, or you can build up a different scene and fussy cut around some of these images and place them on as well. So that's that one. And then I absolutely love this one. I was kind of thinking, I wonder how I'm going to use this, but because I've done a couple of like shadow box frame kind of ideas and that paper mache coffin, this was really lovely to heat emboss with white powder onto black card and use as if it was like little strips of washi tape to kind of decorate the edge of three-dimensional projects as well. So you've got this gorgeous one with loads of the different shaped bats in there, you've got crosses, and then you've got that lovely little tombstone kind of design that you've got in that icon set as well. You've got a really lovely spider web kind of design with not too creepy of a spider in the web on that one. You've got this lovely skull and crossbones one, which goes really nicely with that little skull and crossbones motif. So that in itself could be for a pirate card. It doesn't have to be anything to do with Halloween. And then this one, I don't think I actually used this one in the end, but this one's got all sorts of different like graveyard pieces, the little zombie hand coming up, little jack-o'-lanterns in the foreground, little bones and things. And again, similar kind of items that are in this kind of icon set as well. So you can definitely use this as like a washi tape or border kind of design and then bring those larger icons in too. So there's those stamp sets. Then I'll save that one until later, I think. Then I have 3 of Jane Gill's stamp sets. So I think she had 6, but I've only got 3 of them that I was using. But you've got this stunning skull with roses, and oh, I don't know how Jane draws these spiders, but I couldn't get a couple of her stamp sets last year because she just had such creepy looking spiders on them, and I hate this one, but I like the skull design, but that one there is just horrible. So I didn't stamp that one at all because I have a feeling like if I stamped it I'd keep making myself jump by seeing it stamped out somewhere. But you've got this gorgeous large skull design with lovely roses, and I've used this on a small little shadow box design, and I've put the skull in the background, then I've also fussy cut the roses out and put them on the outside of the frame. You've got happy haunting as a sentiment in here, and then you've got a lovely little spider's web that can work for creating a lovely sort of subtle pattern in the background, maybe adding to samples papers or just creating your own background as well. I love this one. It's a gorgeous witch's hat with like a moon in the background, a broom going behind it. There's almost like hair coming out of the hat. There's like bubbles and stars, all sorts of like magical elements. And then you've got the 3 little bats as well. I didn't actually use this one in its entirety, but I know a couple of the design team have. But I actually cut the hat out and put it onto one of Francois's stamps as well. So you can actually utilise that large hat, and you could even turn it into the sorting hat from Harry Potter as well. I feel like you could easily colour it so it's kind of got the face in it as well. So really, really cool, that one. And then it says Hubble Bubble, Toil and Trouble as the little sentiment, which I actually used in the background, just in Lost Shadow Distress Oxide, just as a subtle kind of pattern in a background. This is that gorgeous large tree that I was telling you about that goes really nicely with this smaller kind of tree from the icon set. They go really nicely together. Even though they're drawn by the different designers, they still go nicely together, which is lovely. And I use this in the background of a large shadow box kind of design, just to sort of give some background interest. You've got cobwebs in here, you've got all of the tombstones, you've got the roots of the tree, so you could cut it off and not have the roots showing. You could rip a hill and have it in front of it. You can add different things into the tree. Some of Francois's stamp sets have got like a little owl and things. You could put the owl in the tree, but you've also got some gorgeous separate bats here as well that are different to the other bats that were in those designer boutique stamp sets as well. And then you've also got the word creepy, which is in a creepy kind of scratchy sort of font as well. So those are the 3 of Jane Gill stamps that I have, but I think there are 3 other ones as well. I do have all of Francois's ones because Francois is just my absolute favourite. I absolutely adore the designs that she comes out with. I don't know how she does it, but they're absolutely brilliant. And again, she's gone with Norman kind of design. So Norman is actually dressed up as a witch, dressed up as a mad professor, and he's also hiding in this potion drink as well. But first of all, I love this one, obviously, because my little doggy's called Pumpkin, and this is a house that's made of a pumpkin. And then you've got the gorgeous little pumpkin outside as well. And I have, where did I put it? I put it over here. So last year, with all of the Halloween releases, I made myself a little journal. I can't remember if I filmed the journal cover, if I just filmed the layout that I did in it. But she's kind of kept with the same sort of theme, like this Norman sitting on a pumpkin stack with his little pumpkin in front of him could go along with this, because the little fella that she's given us here almost looks like he could be that same Norman from last year, but just in a much smaller scale. So if you have last year's Halloween as well, you can definitely combine them. And the spiders are the same, so she's used the same spider kind of image on here as well. And she always keeps to the same gorgeous sort of style. Even her ghost from last year would work really nicely with these as well. But definitely, if you bought anything last year, do check back and see if you've got some bits and pieces that would go really nicely with these, because I think they'll all work really nicely together. So I wanted to show you that. But that is the first one that I have. You've got like a moon, you've got Happy Halloween, it's spooky, you've got a little female kind of gnome, which could be a witch as well, actually. Yeah, she's very similar to that witch, so she could be a gorgeous little witch. Maybe you could play around with nicking the broomstick from this witch, sitting her on the broomstick, and having her flying across a moon as well. And then you've got like little spiders hiding in here, you've got little stars, you've got the separate little spider. These spiders are kind of on the cuter side. You've got a little beware sign here, but you could also put one of these characters in front of this. I love the little moon. On the card that I've done, I kind of tried to make it look like it's nighttime as well, rather than having it as a daytime scene, because you have the moon. I've kind of done a really dark sort of background for it. Then we've also got this one, which is called Spooky Cup. So it's kind of like a skull-shaped cup that's got a gorgeous, spooky, creepy potion in it. And then Norman is also hiding in here as well. He's kind of dressed up as some kind of like mummy, or almost looks like a maggot or something coming out the top of it. But his eyes are there, his nose is here, and his hands are peeping over the top as well. So you can colour him to look like Norman coming out of the top, which is Francois's gnome character. I love this like eyeball popsicle here as well. And then you've got like extra little eyeballs too. You've got this ghost flying out the top. You've got all of this like whipped cream or bubbly kind of goodness with little extras in there. You've got this little worm, and that worm is the same worm that she used in that Norman set last year with the pumpkins I just showed you. You've got a little star, you've got the sentiments that say drink up, it's Halloween, eek and witches brew. And in my sample I actually took this eyeball, put it here, took this eyeball, put it here, took everything off the top of this and put that witch's hat on it from the Francois set, and I even took the handle off, so it just looks like it's a skull wearing a hat with eyeballs in it. So you really can play around with the different sets and mix them across as well. Then you've got the gorgeous witch, which is called Witchy Woo. She's got a gorgeous little toad in the foreground. You've got the separate toad as well, so you can decoupage that up really easily. You've got that owl, which would work in Jane's tree as well. Another different bat. So you've got all sorts of different bats in here. And I think that is actually the same bat that's in here. So if you wanted to easily decoupage that up, you could actually stamp that separately, cut it out and put it over the top of this one as well. You've got a lovely little splatter, which is always useful to have. A gorgeous little cauldron, so you don't have to keep this image as a whole. You could steal some of the pieces off of this as well and have the little cauldron in another scene with one of the other different characters as well. Then sentiment wise, you've got trick or treat, best witches and boo as your sentiments. Then I absolutely adore the little scientist. He is called Professor Gnome, and he's got his crazy hair, which almost looks like he's burnt it off at the top. He's got his crazy sideburns coming out the side. He's got a lovely large moustache. He's got his little glasses with the cord going around the back of his neck. He's got his round bottom flask. He's got his test tube and a conical flask as well. And he's been making a right mess. He's got all sorts of different potions all over him. He's got a really old battered lab coat on with all of these little like dotty hash marks. It really makes him look like he's been through the wars with one of his experiments. And you've got gorgeous splatters, you've got like a little atom symbol as well, you've got have a blast this Halloween and hocus pocus as the sentiments. And I love the equations that she's put in here. I mean, this one is just like a quadratic equation. You've got a squared plus b cubed minus c equals 40. And then this one, I think it's really funny. I think any scientist would think it's funny because she's used the energy equation and then put carbon monoxide on the end of it. So it's energy equals mass times the square of the velocity of light, I think, plus carbon monoxide. But I just think it's funny that she's combined two different kind of equations there. But if you wanted it to just be E equals mc squared, you could just cut off that bit and not stamp it. But I think it's really funny having that little equation in there. It's kind of like he's a not that much of a clever kind of scientist, but like that kind of suits Norman, I think. I don't think he would be that brainy at scientist sort of stuff. So but I love that you've got all of the extra pieces here. And if you don't just want conical flasks, you can just selectively stamp parts of his hand. She's done it so that he's not got his hand coming over the top of these, so you can easily cut those out and selectively use those as extra elements as well. So you can have test tubes, conical flask and round bottom flask as well. So that's the Professor gnome. Then you also have this small little set which has got really lovely silhouette images on here, and this is that cat that I said would go really nicely with that scaredy cat sentiment. You've got a gorgeous witch's hat as well, and I love this dotty detail that she's put in there too. So it's got like dots missing from the black, so it gives a really lovely sort of style to the designs. You've also got two little mice looking in different directions, which is always lovely having the two different directions. A gorgeous drippy design. I think this would look fantastic as a border on an art journal page. And then you've got the word boo and a star as well. And then she's also given us a little sentiment stamp set too. So you've got believe in magic, but that could be Christmas as well. You've got which way to the candy. You've got have a wicked time, which you could do something funny and make it like Wicked themed, like Wicked the musical as well. There is a little witch in all of us. I put a spell on you. You could really make that go to be like a hocus pocus themed card as well. And then welcome to the witching hour. So all in different sorts of fonts. There's that scratchy kind of font again, similar to one of the ones on that Jane Gill stamp set as well. She's used like typewriter and all sorts of different scripty kind of fonts as well. So a lovely mixture in a small set. So if you already had some Halloween stuff, but maybe you've got fed up of the sentiments that you've got, you could just get this small little mini set and, you know, add to your Halloween stash as well, which is nice. So that's the majority of the stamps. I do have another stamp set, but it kind of goes with one of Jamie's die sets, so I'll show you that when I get to that one. But there is a lovely large selection of dies again this year. We've got some from Sue Wilson, some from Jamie, and then I think there is a couple of die sets from Sam Paul, but I just picked one of them because I really loved the style of it and the things that you could do with it as well. Firstly, I've got Sue Wilson's ones on here, and I have just put multiples on this set, but this is an individual die by itself. I think it's called like Bat and Web Border, but it's got gorgeous spiders webs all over, and then these bats that go along the edges of them as well. But again, you could snip out those bats if you really wanted a die cut bat. Maybe this is the only die you've got and you don't have any other bats, you can easily snip them out. You can use this in all sorts of different ways. You can use it as a stencil to add a little bit of pattern onto something as well. You've got an extra mini expression sentiment, so that's separate in a set by itself, that says ghoulish greetings, and actually the word greetings is separate. So this is kind of a die that can definitely be for Halloween because it's got ghoulish in it, but you could use that for Christmas and birthday as well, because the word greetings you can use for all sorts of different occasions. So it's separate, you don't have to snip it off, which is really lovely. And then she's got another little set here which says witching you a happy Halloween. Sorry, there's pumpkin hair on there again. Witching you a happy Halloween. You've got a tiny little bat. I love these little ghosts, they're so cute. I've used them on a couple of the canvases that I've done. They're just so sweet, and they've got a debossing face in there as well. If you had last year's collection, the ghosts in that were phenomenal, but these are on a much smaller scale. They're tiny little ghosts, so you could have a nice mixture of different sizes of ghosts in there. Then you've also got a lovely silhouette of the witch on a broomstick. You've got a little skull there as well, with almost like a crack on his head, and you've got the debossing detail inside him. And then you've got a tiny little cat as well, which she looks quite scared, but she could be sitting on the witch's broomstick too. Then also from Sue Wilson, we have got these 3 different sets as well. So you've got this individual set that just has this little Dracula fella with, again, gorgeous debossing detail. So these look fantastic, just cut from black cardstock and then using your polishes, your Gilded Touch, your Wax Lyrical over the top of them. They look really, really lovely like that. Or you can cut them from white and go to town with colouring them as well, whichever you kind of prefer. And you can also snip along different lines of these and decoupage them up if you really want his wings to look, his wings, well, kind of wings, kind of cape, to look further behind him. You could cut his body out and stick him further in front. I've done that on my canvas panel as well to kind of add a little bit more depth on there. You can do all sorts of different things like that. Then and there's another set with these 3 wacky looking skeletons, kind of like jumping, putting their feet in the air, like dancing, really crazy kind of wacky skeletons with their top hats on. I actually use these all over a gift bag just to decorate that really funkily as well. But you've got so many different poses, and you could like snip bits and pieces off of them as well to be like, you know, they've lost a limb or something too. So you've got those little skeletons, and then you've got this little set of trick-or-treaters as well. You've got this little ghost, again, lots of debossing details in these, but the ghost actually, he's holding a little pumpkin pot, but you've got a separate pumpkin pot, so you can cut it out and stick it on top if you want to make that more dimensional as well. You've got a little devil there too, and he's got his separate pitchfork, so you can add that onto him. And then you've got a lovely little witch running along too. She's got like her hair going across one of her eyes, and she's got a lovely little tatty dress on. Again, these look fantastic cut in black with your polishes and things over the top. You've got a tiny little lollipop, which is really, really sweet. So you can have those scattered on the ground. They've been trick-or-treating and collecting their lollipops. And then you've got the words boo, spooky and beware in this gorgeous curly kind of font as well. Then there's one more die set from Sue Wilson, and this one is one of her like large panel kind of die sets. There was one last year as well, but this one has got Frankenstein's monster in the foreground. Then it's got like hills with tombstones on there. You've got a path leading up to this little haunted house with little trees behind it. You've got a couple of ghosts. You've got some spooky kind of like wispy clouds in there. You've got a moon, and you've got a couple of bats in there too. So I again cut this from black and used it on a canvas with just polishes and things over the top, but you really could go to town with paper piecing back in, maybe using fluffy stuff on this interior piece, making like a fluffy kind of cloud. You can really go to town with paper piecing the moon back in and adding some gorgeous design to that. You can really pick out the details on the Frankenstein's monster as well, maybe 3D up some of him too, put some metallic on his little bolts, all sorts of different things that you could do with this. I've literally used it in like the simplest way possible, but I think a lot of the design team have gone to town with how they've kind of used this. And this is a single die that gives you all that detail, but there's nothing to stop you snipping bits out. If you wanted a Frankenstein's monster to go with the trick-or-treaters, you can easily snip him out and have him as part of their little gang as well. You can easily snip the ghosts out. You can have the little house and snip it out as well. Maybe mount that in a little circle section. It doesn't even look that creepy, so this could be a new home card. You know, you could mount that on a little circle and it could just be a new home card. It doesn't have to be anything to do with Halloween, which is nice. And then there's also trick or treat as a little die cut sentiment in the centre of that as well. I use that trick or treat on the gift bag that I use those crazy skeletons onto too, so a lovely little sentiment there. Then we have Jamie's dies. So he's got quite a few different ones as well. He's got this gorgeous pumpkin border where you get the actual pumpkins with all of their faces in them, so the jack-o'-lantern faces, which you could mount this onto a colour to have like gold or yellow or black showing through them, or you could paper piece them back in. You've also got gorgeous debossed detail on the little pumpkins as well, and you also have the bubble to go behind it. So if you are like keeping it really simple and you want to layer the bubble, so the faces, maybe you don't put anything behind the faces, but you don't want to be able to see the background behind them, you can have vellum bubble or a coloured bubble, so that colour would show through the faces as well. But a gorgeous little row of pumpkins. You've got 7 different shaped little pumpkins there as well, which would easily be snipped into. The way they've joined them, they've not properly given you a definition of which pumpkin is in front of which pumpkin, so you could easily maybe cut this twice, isolate every other another pumpkin from one die cut and then the other 3 pumpkins from the other die cut and get complete little pumpkins on there as well and do like an overall background with die cut pumpkins. Then he's got 2 sentiments. He's got Haunted Wishes and Scary Greetings, and there's a little bat on the Scary Greetings, and these are individual. All 3 of those are individual little die sets. So if you just want something extra to go with your Halloween stash, you can just pick like one tiny little die set. And I think these are usually only like £3 to £4, these tiny little sentiments. Then he also has in his collection, I think these are the last ones of his, he's got this gorgeous set of nesting coffin kind of dies. It's a really nice shape actually. It's kind of got the 3-sided, almost like half a hexagon at the top, 2 flat sides, and then back to an elongated half a hexagon at the bottom. So it's a really lovely kind of shape that you can use as a gift tag. You can use it as an aperture in a card. You could do some like invitage with all of the different shapes in there as well. You can have smaller ones poking out from behind things. All sorts of different things that you can do with this. And he's also put in a few extra elements within the empty spaces as well. So you've got a gorgeous little candle which has some debossing detail on it. You've got a tiny little RIP that you could put on one of the smaller coffins. You've got a tiny little bat as well. You've got a lovely little zombie hand, and then you've also got a little cross. And on one of my cards I actually made the Frankenstein's monster hold the cross as well. On that scene from one of the Sue Wilson die sets, I put that in his little hand. So you can also sort of cross-pollinate between designers with your dies too. And then this final die set has got like little potion bottles, and then this stamp set is kind of designed to go with this die set mostly, I think, because, I mean, it goes with all of the bits and pieces from the entire collection, but with these gorgeous little bottles here, you have all of the stamps in this collection to be able to put different labels on your bottles or your conical flask, or this kind of looks like a sweetie jar, but there's also eyeball die cuts in there as well that you can use to decorate that. But you've got all sorts of different ones here that would fit on here really nicely, like bat blood you can put on your conical flask. You can do like danger, poison, handle with care, toxic would maybe just about fit, or you can cut it out as a little extra label to fit on there as well. You've also got things like dusty web venom, which would fit straight onto that, or you've also got a die that cuts it out really nicely as well. You've got all sorts of extra things on this stamp set that can be used with this die set in particular to kind of add different elements. But this gorgeous cauldron I paired with the scientist gnome, and you've also got like a gorgeous, much more creepy skull and crossbones compared to that cute cut skull and crossbones that I showed you earlier. You've got I'll put a spell on you. Instead of I've put a spell on you, it's I'll put a spell on you. You've got handle with care, poison, danger, toxic. This one is a little witch under here with a broomstick, and a little cat on the broomstick as well, in a kind of circle with a triangle over the top. Dusty web venom, warning, bat blood, toe of frog, eyeball juice as well. You've got this lovely little shield that says eyeball juice. You've got a little bat, you've got a magic wand, you've got a gorgeous like spell book in here as well that says air, spirit, water, fire, earth on there too. Oh, you can actually read what this says. I didn't actually read that before. It says eye of newt, wing of bat, leg of frog, foot of crow, pinch of salt, full moon dust. So you can actually read what that says on that little book as well. And then you've got some horrible little spiders and that horrible spider as well. But you can use them on any of your projects that you'd want to too. And you've also got a witch's hat on there too, and a bolt or an arrow. That can be an arrow as well. So that's the kind of stamp set that goes along with this one. But looking at this die set closer, you have got a die cut spider who's just got 6 legs. You've got a little bone in there as well. You've got the sort of little label dies that you can use to cut out some of those stamped images. These ones give you 2 little eyeballs with like the iris as a debossed detail in there as well. And then you've also got a little skull and crossbones on like a little label as well. So you've got all sorts in that die set from Jamie. Then this die set is one of the Sam Paul ones. I don't have the other one because I preferred this one, so I went for this one. But look at this. I absolutely adore this set. I've used it so many times because you can turn these into stencils. You can cut both elements together and stick them onto canvases and stuff to give you some extra design, or you can cut them straight into your card front as well. So I had cut these ready to show you. You can see how if you don't use the outside edge, you just use the inside edge. You can cut these into your panels, and then you could put anything behind them to give some colour behind that. So that's more of like that's using leftover wax lyricals and gilded touches from one of the canvases that I did. But you can see how nicely that shines through. This is just an oxide background that I had left over. You can put that through there as well. You can put glitter paste, all sorts of different things underneath these to give a cool different design. I didn't actually finish off any of these as cards, but I wanted to show you how nicely they fit into a card panel. And with this bubbly one, you could have put it again going off in the other direction as well. You don't have to just cut it once into your card blank, but I wanted to show you that. And then also these two I've been using for tons of different things as stencils. And they've just got really inky and messy, but you could just ink these completely black and then use them for another card as well. But they work so nicely as stencils. You'll see in a lot of my samples, you'll see this bubbly kind of texture and the ghostly kind of cobwebs in there as well, where I've used them as stencils. So that is a sample set, and you see you've got the outside edge separate. And then you've got the interior edge that cuts like those panels that I just showed you as well. So that is the sample die set that I've got. And then there is also 3 paper cuts die sets in here as well. And if you're a fan of paper cuts, you'll know that they do different styles of dies. So they do edges, they do standalone just cut out kind of dies, and they also now do the cut and lift dies as well. So we've got one of each of them in this Halloween kind of theme. So you've got this gorgeous skeleton, which could be like Day of the Dead, or it could be that kind of a skeleton as well. You've kind of got a few flowery kind of elements in here, and she kind of looks like she's dancing and really happy. So you could do anything with this gorgeous skeleton, and she is an edger die. So this side of the die, which would be the opposite side when you cut it out, cuts into the card and will give you apertures of all of the detail. And then this side of the die cuts out of the card and will give you her cut out of the cardstock. And I'll show you her on the paper mache coffin that I've done. So that is the skeleton. And then there's also these 2 dies from paper cuts as well. I absolutely adore this owl. He is so cute, and he's got a gorgeous ghoul next to him, and then he's got a moon on top of his hat. He's got a star here as well, some extra little stars. He's sitting on a branch which is all like swirly and gorgeous. He's got lovely large eyes, and he's got this stunning hat as well. You could really go to town with paper piecing this back in, colouring it, you know, doing all sorts with it. Again, I did actually keep really simple with the owl. I used it a couple of times actually, but the main use was on a canvas with the gilded touch and wax lyricals over the top. But it looks absolutely fantastic, just used really simply as well. But you really could go to town. I think Sheila has done a card or 2 with the owl, doing her gorgeous watercolour techniques, and it looks fantastic. And then finally we've got a cut and lift bat die. So his wings lift up, his ears lift up, parts of the skull lift up as well, and then there's also these 3 gorgeous fall away bats in there too, and some stars as well, which are really great for adding as different embellishments on different projects as well. So gorgeous little bat. There might even be a coordinating stencil for him, I'm not sure, because with the festive cut and lifts that hopefully I'll have put a video up by now, or it will be coming up, they brought out stencils to go with them. I'm pretty sure there is supposed to be a stencil that goes with this bat as well. So those are all of the products. Oh no, actually one more, fluffy stuff. So there's more colours of, like brighter colours of fluffy stuff coming out for Halloween. There's also some more Jess O from Jane Davenport as well in Halloween colours. And then there's also glow in the dark fluffy stuff and texture paste too. So that is all of the products that I've got to show you. I'll move all of this out the way, and then I'll come and show you the tons of samples that I've created as well. So I think I've got about 18 different projects to show you, so hopefully it won't take too long going through these, because I feel like I took a long time going through all of the stamps and dies. But I've done a couple of gift bags, because I bought a bunch of these last year for doing some Halloween projects with, and I still had some left, so I thought I'd do a couple of gift bags. In the background I splattered with wax lyricals in orange, purple and green. I can't remember the colours of them because I just have prototype versions, but they're really gorgeous colours. I really enjoyed the wax lyricals. I've used them quite a lot on the canvas designs as well that I've done. I've layered up that Trick or Treat sentiment and picked some orange cardstock. I think that is pumpkin cardstock from Foundations that goes with the orange splattering. And then I've just used tons of those funny skeletons all over the bag, and I've like cut some off so they're sort of poking in from different angles. I think he looks like he's riding on a roller coaster, putting his hands in the air. But yeah, you can sort of like snip off different elements of them, have an arm coming in from different angles and stuff, and I've added some bones and things from Jamie's die set and some fall away stars from that Paper Cut Spat die as well. So that's the first gift bag that I've done. I've then also done a gift bag with Francoise's witch on here as well, and I've done a little bit of decoupage with her hat, nose and her hair as well, and I've also put an extra eyeball on from the Spooky Cup set too, and the background is using those silhouette kind of icons plus the Sam Paul die as a stencil, and then a couple of little Trick or Treat sentiments stamped in the background, lots of ink blending with Villainous Potion and Black Soot coming in from the edges. This was a distress paint background that I'd done a little while ago. Picked raspberry, seedless preserves, and there was a little bit of wilted violet in there as well. And then I've used that Witching You a Happy Halloween, which is from one of Sue Wilson's die sets, and I've just done that as a nice little element to add onto a gift bag. But if you didn't want to put this on a gift bag, it worked really nicely on the front of a card as well, or in a frame or something too, or just as a temporary kind of decoration that you blue tack on the wall or something for Halloween too. So really cool gift bag kind of design. So there's that one. Then this was the first one that I finished. I absolutely love how this one turned out. This is using that gorgeous Paper Cuts owl, and I stacked two of them, I think it was two, it might have been three, no I think it was two, on top of each other to give it a little bit more depth. And then I've also layered up different elements in the background too. So this is Sam Paul's die cut out, so I've used the cutting edge to cut it out, and this bubbly one as well. I've cut both of them out and stuck them on in different areas, having like bits of them coming in from some areas and like a whole spider web in two different areas, and it actually wraps around the side a little bit as well. And then I've used fall away bats from the Paper Cuts die with the cut and lift bat. There's a few extra bats from some of those small dies that were in some of Jamie's and Sue's die sets. There's also Beware from the Trick or Treaters die set from Sue Wilson as well. And then basically all I've done is just cut everything from black card. I gessoed my canvas black first, stuck all of those elements on, and actually I did bring in, here in some of these areas, I put some glue in some of those little sort of crevices that are in that circle kind of die, and I put some black micro beads, and I also sprinkled in some ultra thick black embossing powder, but I didn't set it. It's just like giving you like a crunkly kind of detail. But if you had the black fluffy stuff, you could have used that on here as well. I didn't want to try and cover up orange fluffy stuff, so but you definitely could have used the black fluffy stuff on here to do that. And then once this was all stuck on, everything was all black, I came in with three colours of wax lyricals, the dark blue, the purple and the turquoise, and I just added bits of colour everywhere. And then I thought, well, I want to kind of add a light source to this, so I tried to sort of bring a light source in from the top, just using white gesso and dry brushing it on from that same angle. And then to also emphasise some of that, I took some of the pearl gilded touch and added some to the ghosts, a little bit on some of the cobwebs, and a little bit where I'd been bringing that white gesso in from the side as well. And then I also finished off with a wordie from last year, The Witching Hour is Near, which is the Halloween set of wordies from last year. So that is a gorgeous canvas kind of project, which, I mean, if you really go to town decorating your house for a Halloween party and you have other canvases on your wall already, like all year round, just take them off and like plop a Halloween canvas onto the wall as well. It's a nice way of like switching out decor as well. So I really like how that one turned out. And then I wanted to do another canvas too, because I really wanted to show off that gorgeous frame or like scene from Sue Wilson's die set. So for this one, I cut two and layered them up, but before I layered them together, the first one, I ripped a closer border to it, and then I stuck the first one onto the second one, and the second one I ripped a wider border. So you've got like this double ripped edge on here as well, which picks up those gilded touches and wax lyricals really well too. And then I've just layered on a bunch of other die cuts. So there's more fall away bats from the Paper Cuts die, extra little bats, the fall away stars from that Paper Cuts die, These are the tiny little ghosts. Aren't they just so adorable? I've put the witch flying off in the corner as well. I've used the Trick or Treat from that main die set. This is where I've given the Frankenstein's monster that little cross to hold. I've also put the Dracula over here as well, and you can see how I have snipped his body out and added it as a second layer over the top just to give that little bit of extra dimension on there too. He's dropped his little lollipop there as well. And then I've also used some of the sentiments, the spooky and the boo from that little Trick or Treaters die set as well. And then again, I gessoed the canvas black first, stuck all of those elements on, and then just came in with some of the wax lyricals and some of the gilded touches as well, because there's some gorgeous copper colours in the gilded touch, and I think the red was a gilded touch as well, but I've used like orange and gold and stuff. Oh yeah, the gold from the wax lyricals is absolutely brilliant. It's got like real sparkles in it. It's really, really pretty, the gold one. If you haven't tried a wax lyrical, go for the gold one because it's really, really gorgeous. And then I've also splattered in here as well. I didn't do any of the white on this one, but I do like the white as an effect, but I really didn't want to ruin what I'd already done on this one, because you know, die cutting all of that and sticking it all down and everything had taken quite a while at that point, so I didn't want to ruin it by trying to add white onto it. But I do really like it. It's quite busy, but I think it works really nicely as a lovely kind of home decor piece. Would be nice in a children's bedroom maybe as well, switching out a canvas on the wall or something for kind of October time. So that is the other canvas that I have done. Then I've also done this paper mache coffin that I got from Hobbycraft, and you can see here I've put those washi tape kind of designs all the way around the edge with that gorgeous skull and crossbones. I put a little bit going across the middle as well. I used a little wordie, again from last year's set of wordies. I've then also, all the way around the edge of this, I actually used the Gran Perla texture paste that they had, oh it was called granite paste actually, that they had a really long time ago, but they recently bought out those mineral micas, and there is a Gran Perla one of that. So if you just mix some Gran Perla mineral mica in with some Cosmic Shimmer glue, you could do this same effect that I've done on here, but I did it with the old granite paste. But if you don't have that, because I don't think they sell it anymore, you could definitely mix the Gran Perla mica, mineral mica, or any of the other colours if you wanted to, and mix it in with a little bit of Cosmic Shimmer glue, and then just wipe it all over the edges, and you get this really cool effect. And then also, because I'd used that on the edges, I actually came back in with one of the other colours of mineral mica and put it round the edges of the die cut on here as well, and I've also put it inside the coffin too. I've also put some gold glitter bits behind areas where I knew that they would show through when I put the die cut on top, and then I've just finished off with that gorgeous die cut. You can see how half of her cuts out and half of her is in the actual cardstock. And then to get it to fit on my coffin box, all I did was lay the coffin lid over the top of my die cut, draw around with a pencil, and then cut inside that line, so you actually got the coffin kind of shape so it fit perfectly on the top of the box. And then on the inside I've used the 8x8 padded quilt embossing folder from Creative Expressions, and doesn't it work so perfectly as the interior of a coffin? And this is using that solid orange sheet from Sample's paper pad, and then I've actually added quite a bit of like black soot distress ink onto that, and I also used the paper distresser or thread cutter to mess up the edges of it as well. And then I did also emboss the inside too, but I used the patterned version of that orange colour, but I did emboss the inside as well, so you can kind of see that pattern in there too. And I put another one on the inside, so you've got the exact same skeleton lady on the inside too. And I also put some of the mineral mica around the edges in there as well, just because it kind of looks like it could be like bone dust or something that you might find in a coffin. I thought it just works really well, that kind of mineral mica. So I've used that inside there, and that is the coffin that I've done. Then I've done this tiny little wooden sign, which I also got from Hobbycraft. I've used the sample die on here, the bubbly one, behind here, and then when I put it on there, I scraped through some of that orange fluffy stuff, and heated it up so it's kind of like puffed up in those dotty kind of areas. I also scraped a bit across the background and puffed it up as well, and then I used some of the black wax lyrical to sort of distress the edges and pick up some of that detail. I've used the Jamie Scary Greetings die, some of these small bats again from some of the other die sets, and then these two trick-or-treaters from that Sue Wilson die set, and I've just cut them from black card and then used the wax lyrical over the top, and you can see how well it debosses that detail, so you can just put a polish or a wax over the top and you can still see all of that detail because it just kind of picks up the raised areas and leaves the black detail for you. So they really look like an engraving, which is nice. So just a really cute little sign that you can, you know, hang somewhere as well for Halloween. Then I also did this little piece as well, which is a little tiny tree trunk, which again I got from Hobbycraft. Can you tell? I did a Hobbycraft order. This a little tree trunk with a slit in it, and then I've just used one of Jamie's coffins and I've put two together. I've sandwiched in that bat web border cut from vellum, one on each side. I've used that gorgeous owl on the front, and then I had this fluffy stuff background left over from one of the cards that I'll show you later. I used fluffy stuff and some of the gilded touches and wax lyricals as well to create a really cool background, sprinkled in some holographic glitter bits, and I had a little bit left over. And then I've just used the word greetings from that Sue Wilson Ghoulish Greetings die set as well, and another little ripped bit of vellum to go along with the vellum bat and spider web piece that I've put in there too. So a really simple little idea. If you were having a Halloween party, that could say the person's name who's sitting at that place on the table as well, if you were having more of a dinner party. So you could do that too. Then I have a couple of shadow boxes. Again, I got them from Hobbycraft. This is a gorgeous little tiny one. They came in black, which was nice as well, so that it works really well just for Halloween straight away. I didn't have to spend time black gessoing it. And this is the one where I put Jane's skull stamp in the background, and I've also used some of the cobweb as well to kind of add just sort of a light grey kind of background to it. And I've just sort of placed that behind and then used the extra roses. I stamped the image twice and then cut the roses out and used the extra roses on the outside of the frame along with that washi tape kind of one with the spider webs, so it goes with the spider webs that are in here. You definitely could have stamped that horrible creepy spider and put it like in here as well, but I couldn't bring myself to stamp it, so I've just left it with cobwebs around the edges and then those gorgeous roses as well. And I think it looks really cool like that. So, you know, just a really simple kind of little shadow box sort of a frame. But if you want to make use of a shadow box for the depth of it as well, I also did this one, which is using an absolute ton of all sorts of different products even. So the background is a sample paper. This is that large tree from one of the Jane Gill stamp sets. There's also the small tree from that Designer Boutique stamp set. There's the Sue Wilson... I think it's Sue Wilson. Yeah, it was Sue Wilson, wasn't it? Bat and web die cut from vellum in the background. There's some of these bats that are from the tree stamp set from Jane Gill. There's some Jamie Rogers potion kind of dies and stamps to go with them there as well. Again with the cauldron, that's also from that stamp set too. There's the gorgeous Norman, and I have layered up his moustache and nose as well to give it a little bit of extra dimension. And then there's also this element, which is from that same stamp set from Jamie. There's extra conical flasks from the Scientist as well. And then I also got a bunch of these glass jars. I got them in the range. They had all sorts of different sizes, and I thought you never know when you want little glass jars and things. They were like £1 a packet, and I've got like a really tall skinny one, a chunkier taller one, little tiny squat ones, and then a medium sized one as well. And I've just used some of the different stamps and things. So that's that funky skull and crossbone, and I've just cut around it in a wonky fashion. This is one of the stamps from the Jamie set. There's also Toxic and Toe of Toad or Toe of Frog, and then Bat Blood around the other one as well, just to sort of add little labels onto them. And then one of them, this one here, actually has die cut bones in it as well. It's kind of difficult to see. You can just about see there's die cut bones in there. And you could also fill these full of like little beads and things to make them look different. And then also on the bottom, because the way I'd put this together, I actually like butchered it a little bit. You can see this piece is kind of like bowing and the glue had been seeping out as well, because I wanted these bottles to sit inside that lip, but the lip wasn't quite big enough, but I managed to squish them in anyway. And then to cover up the fact that the back was bowing outwards a little bit and that it was a bit boring in the front here, I just put a bunch of Cosmic Shimmer glue in there and sprinkled in some of the large glass micro beads that they used to sell, so it kind of looks like bubbles or something from one of the experiments that the little gnome professor has been doing. So that's how that kind of turned out. And I love that you can actually read that. I don't know why I didn't even try to read it before, but you can actually read what that little book says, which is really nice. And then all the way around the edge, I've used the bat border. So there's, oh no, I used the bat and the cobweb, and then the bat again. So just adding in those gorgeous borders. They're the perfect length for this shadow box, which is about 7.5 inches, or roughly 19 centimetres, so just smaller than an 8-inch square little shadow box. But I really like how that turned out, and it just gives a gorgeous like 3D kind of effect. And because it's a shadow box, it does just stand on its base as well. You don't need the thing coming out the back of it to make it stand, but it also has a piece so you can hang it on the wall as well. But I just love that it's just a gorgeous little decoration. It was really fun to do as well. So, just layering up all sorts of different elements. You could have actually used some invisible thread, sandwiched it between the frame and the extra piece that's in there to turn it into the shadow box, and had some bats hanging, and so that they would move when you moved it as well. You could do all sorts with this. There were so many pieces I had ready that I couldn't fit in here, that I wanted to have 2 trees in the background, and I was going to have the cauldron, there was going to be the conical flask in here as well. I think I was going to have the witch flying off the corner too, but I kind of ran out of space on it. But I just love how this turned out, and I think Norman looks so cool in there in his scientist outfit with his tatty old lab coat and all of his experiments. And I also coloured his hands to be purple, so he's wearing the proper PPE, although I'm not sure his glasses would class as safety goggles, but he's wearing his lab coat, so I thought he has to have more PPE on him as well. So that is the other shadow box that I did. And then I've just got a bunch of cards to show you as well, because obviously I have to make cards because I am a card maker at heart and I love my cards. So this is the Paper Cuts bat with a haphazard kind of, what did I use in the background? It might have been distress paint when I was playing with them. It's just a random kind of background. I cut the die out of black, put it on top. I used the rainbow black glitter kiss, I think it's called Midnight Sparkle, on the wings. And then behind the aperture bits of the bat that I also wanted to be black, I used the rainbow black glitter bits. So I've used Glitter Kiss and Glitter Bits to give different sort of sparkles to this as well. I've done Fangs for Being My Friend, which is one of the old wordies from last year. And then I also used some of the pearl Gilded Touch and watercoloured over the top of the skulls to give them that gorgeous pearl kind of finish too. So really simple card using the Paper Cuts bat. This one was a background that I created last year when I was doing my Halloween projects, and I really want to do a tutorial video on this, but I still haven't gotten around to it, and obviously I made these over a year ago now, but I was using Jamie's glossy glazes, and I did something to them to make it easy to apply as well. But I sort of put strips of it on there and squished the two together and pulled them apart in my squishy kind of fashion. But it really gives a cool Halloween effect because it looks like dripping blood. And this one I had actually squished some die cuts in before it had dried. But obviously they were last year's die cuts and I was focusing on this year's. So I covered them up by putting a strip of washi tape going across the middle. I've cut out some of those bats from the Designer Boutique set as well. I've cut out that pumpkin scarecrow, and then I've also used the word boo as well. So this is all using those Designer Boutique stamp sets. All 3 of them are included on this sample, and I've also sprinkled in some black glitter bits to that glossy glaze before it was dry as well. Then this one is also using that Designer Boutique stamp set, the sentiment one. So I've just done, one of my favourite kind of things is to do a topography kind of background where you just stamp all of your sentiments in haphazard ways, upside down, going vertical, horizontal, the right way up, you know, all over, just sort of nestling them into each other. So using all of those sentiments from that Designer Boutique stamp set, and then finishing off with the Jamie Rogers Scary Greetings die cut that I've mounted onto white and then mounted onto black as well, just in a wonky rectangle cut with scissors. And then in the background I have used that cobweb to do a little bit of light inking with some hickory smoke. And then I've also come back in, as you can see, there's remnants of the yellow and the purple and the green around the edges of this. I've used this as a stencil to do, I think it was Lucky Clover, Carved Pumpkin and Wilted Violet I think I used Distress inks to just ink through there, and then I did a little bit of black soot coming around the edges to kind of distress it a little bit as well. Then this was that really simple card that I said using those icons from the set I was trying to do a drippy distress paint background. I haven't quite mastered how I want to do that yet, but it didn't quite work. So I sprayed it with a ton of extra water and then just stamped on some images in oxide to give this cool purple kind of background that kind of has depth in it because I did that to it. And then I inked around the edges with Villainous Potion and Black Soot. And then because I had that glitter kiss out from doing that backed card, I just used my glitter kiss and scraped it along the edges. I love doing this kind of thing. I've done it with Tonic's Glimmer Paste before as well. Scraped it all along the edges to give a really sparkly finish. I also watered some down and splattered it into the background as well, so you can splatter your glitter kisses too. And then I just finished it off with Trick or Treat and that creepy tree. I just stamped in black and then trimmed around with my scissors as well, so really, really simple. Then this was one of the cards I finished yesterday using that fantastic pumpkin house. The background, you know that gift bag I showed you at the beginning where I'd splattered on the Wax Lyrical in the background. This was an extra card panel that I splattered the green and the purple onto, and then I was like, I want this to be a nighttime scene for the pumpkin house, so I just took that white piece of card that I splattered onto, ink blended it all over with Black Soot Distress ink, and then just wiped it over with some kitchen roll, and then all of those spots of Wax Lyrical appeared again, so it kind of looks like different coloured stars as splatter in the background. You could have definitely done it over the top, but because I'd already done it and I wanted a nighttime scene, I thought, I wonder if it will resist, and it does resist really nicely. And I've just added all of the different elements from that pumpkin set, and I also added the owl in from the witch set as well. And then I've done Happy Halloween as the sentiment. Then this one is the one where I took Jane Gill's hat and put it onto Francoise's spooky cup that I've turned into just a skull, and took the cup out and put 2 eyeballs in it as well. This is the eyeball that's on the lollipop that's got the drip coming off of it, and then this was just one of the plain eyeballs as well. And I've also put the toad on the brim of the hat, and I've put the ghost up there, which was also on a stick coming out of the drink too. So really, really cute little design. And again, I've used the cobweb one in the background with some hickory smoke, and then Hubble Bubble Toil and Trouble is stamped with Lost Shadow Distress Oxide as well, to give a little bit of interest in the background. Then this one is using that icon stamp set from Francois, and I was playing around with some distress glazes. I bought myself some a while ago to do a cool technique with that I still haven't gotten around to doing a tutorial on, which hopefully I will do. But I was playing around with some of the colours and doing that sprinkling technique. So I stamped with Versamark the hat, the cat and the little mice on there as well, and a couple of stars. And then I sprinkled on, I think it's Fossilised Amber, Picked Raspberry and Crackling Campfire, the 3 different colours of distress glazes. And then once I had heated that, I came back in with this, which is the bubble one that you can hardly see now because it's so black with ink, and I inked through this with Versamark, and then I put Hickory Smoke Distress Glaze on, and then I also used Hickory Smoke Distress Ink and Black Soot to go through with the cobweb as well. And I also stamped one of the little sentiments again in the Lost Shadow Distress Oxide ink pad in the background a little bit too, and I splattered with some of the same colours of distress inks in the background as well. So this has got quite a lot of layers on it, but yeah, this was my first attempt at it, and I tried to ink blend over the top as well, and I didn't really like how it turned out, but it is quite spooky and Halloweeny, so I might finish it off and turn it into a card. But yeah, I prefer this one, I think, with the lighter kind of effect. But this was I did the exact same thing, but I had sprinkled in Lost Shadow and Hickory Smoke in these dots in the foreground, and I didn't really like how it was turning out. They weren't as defined as I wanted them to be. So then I did a lot of the spiderweb in the background. Then I inked over everything with the same colours of oxides as I had used for the distress glazes, and then I sprayed it with a bunch of water, but I still didn't really like how it turned out, so that's why I did this one in the end. And then I've just used the Welcome to the Witching Hour little sentiment on there. Then this one was another one of those glossy glaze backgrounds that I did last year, so in last year's video you might have seen a card with this kind of background on, but I just used, this is the actual die cut of the sample die, but I ripped it out. So instead of having the actual cut line that it gives you for cutting it out, I just ripped from the aperture and stuck it on. And then I've used the Jamie Rogers pumpkin border die, cut it from black, and you can see that debossing detail in there, and then stuck it onto vellum. And then I've used Haunted Wishes, which I think was also one of Jamie's sentiments as well. But Really, really simple card, this one, just with a fun kind of background with those glossy glazes and glitter bits in there too. And then the final card is using the apertures of those gorgeous potion bottles from Jamie as well. And this was leftover Wax Lyrical and Gilded Touch from the canvas, the orangey canvas, and I just painted it onto a piece of card. And I think I showed you, yeah, it was from this piece of card here. So it was literally just all of them painted on randomly. So that's behind that one. And then after painting that background, I still had some of those left over. So I sprayed them with water, added in fluffy stuff, and then squished my cardstock into that. And then when I took it off, I sprinkled on, I think they're called Midas Touch, the metallic gold glitter bits, not metallic, holographic gold glitter bits. And then I heated it, and then you get this cool puffy effect with the puffy orange fluffy stuff, plus the glitter bits in there, plus the metallic-y look of those waxes that were in the background as well. And I've just used pieces of that behind those apertures with some of those stamps on again. So you've got Dusty Web Venom, you've got that little witch on a broomstick, which was inside a circle I think, but I cut it out of that and just used it as a triangle, and then I've just cut around that bat blood as well. And then I've used the word greetings, which was from the Sue Wilson Ghoulish Greetings die set, but I've just used the word greetings and stuck it onto a little bit of vellum, and then used the word spooky from my Dymo labeler, but you probably could find the word spooky from those Halloween wordies as well. And then I've just stacked them all up onto a card. So, nearly lost my voice from talking too much, but thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this Halloween video showing you all of the elements that I had, plus all the samples that I've done for the Creative Expressions Halloween collection for 2023, which has a lovely variety of all sorts of different products designed by all of the Creative Expressions designers. So you've got some from CRaFTi, isn't she called CRaFTi? CRaFTi Shuttleworth, I think, from Pink Ink Designs, and she also does the paper cuts ones. Then you've got Jamie Rogers, you've got Sue Wilson, you've got Jane Gill, Francois Reed, Sam Paul, the designer boutique ones, which are from just undisclosed designer. I think that's everybody who's designed for this collection, but I just absolutely love playing with all of these Halloween goodies and the number of different projects that you can create. And obviously there is a lot that's come out in this collection, so by no means do you need like every single thing, but I think picking out some of the bits and pieces that you've seen that you think would go with something else that you already have, or perhaps these potion bottles or the Norman, if you have a scientist in your family. It doesn't have to be anything to do with Halloween, that could just be your family member as a scientist as well. You could even take the hat that I used from the Jane Gill stamp on top of the skull. You could put that hat on Norman as well, so he could be like witchy scientist as well. And you can mix them up so much and just play with all of the different designs that are in this collection. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, because I have a feeling this was quite a long one, and I will see you again in the next video.